Hiya, my name is Jovita. I'm a product designer based in the UK. So today we'll be talking about 6 things to get ready before your first remote workshop. Okay, so let's jump right into it. The number one thing you have to do in order to start planning doing your workshop is to know what kind of a workshop you want to do. And in order to do that, you need to think about what kind of problems do you need solving. And so here I'm just going to quickly review what types of workshops you can do. So if you don't have a clear product vision or need to organize a plan for tackling an upcoming project, you might want to consider a discovery workshop. Another type of workshop is an empathy workshop. And that's often done if, say, the stakeholders in your company or your team that you're working with don't have a clear understanding of your users or your end users' problems, their needs and their behaviors. This would be a nice thing to do, an empathy workshop. The third type of a workshop that you might want to do is a design workshop. In the design workshop, you might want to brainstorm some ideas with your team, so ideate on potential solutions to the problem that you're facing. The next type of workshop that you might want to do is prioritization workshop, and that's when you want to understand what type of features or other initiatives that need to be dealt with in what order. And the last one, if for instance you created a great design but now need some feedback on it, you might want to have a critique workshop organized with your team. And so there you'll be talking about whether the outcomes that you wanted to meet are met, etc. Once you've decided what type of workshop you want to do, is to know what type of people you should invite to it. And so, as an example, the discovery workshop might include the stakeholders in your team as well as some of the team members that are in your team. The empathy workshop might include some researchers and designers. The design workshop would include your team, so cross-functional team. The prioritization workshop would have the stakeholders as well as other decision makers within your company. And the critique workshop would include your fellow designers or people with whom you are in the same team in your company. Okay. The third thing that you should consider is organizing your board, your Miro board, or the collaboration tool that you're going to use for working with your team. And so in this particular step, you might want to consider reusing some of the templates that are already created online. And for instance, I use Miro and I like Miro, but I also know that there is Mural, which is another collaboration tool. I am going to include some links in the description to their templates, so it could get you nicely started for your first remote workshop. Okay, the thing number 4 to prepare is your agenda. And the things that you might want to include in your agenda are the things like what is the goal of your workshop, why you've decided to do this workshop, what's the end goal, you will have accomplished by the end of the workshop, and what kind of steps you will take after the workshop. And so what I usually do when I prepare my agenda is in Miro. So as I'm preparing my board for the workshop, individual frames, I usually like to use this side area in Miro to create my plan. And when you prepare this agenda, I would really advise just running through it with either your product manager, your product owner, or your fellow designer, or someone within the business that you work with that might have a nice understanding of what you're trying to do. If not, you can explain that to them and see how they understand it. And then, if something comes up that is not clear to them, great, because then you can tweak it. This is not the workshop time yet, so you can tweak it and get it ready for later. Okay, and now exciting stuff. If you're happy with the agenda that you've created, now is the time to create your calendar invite. And in that calendar invite, what I like doing is just copying all of the notes that I put as an agenda in Miro and pasting it in the calendar invite. And then I will just tweak that invite to the people that I'll be working with, so they have a clear understanding of what we are going to do. Okay, the number 5 thing that I advise you do before running your first remote workshop is meet with your team before your workshop. I like doing that like one day before the actual workshop, and in that meeting go through the invite that you send them again, because some people don't read emails or don't read descriptions in their invites. So I would strongly advise just going through the steps that you've highlighted in the invite with them when they're with you. And what I also like doing, and I would recommend doing that as well, is ask them if they have any questions about anything that you've just listed. And this is not just for them to get the answers to what's going to happen. It's really good for you to know what things are unclear, because you can then tweak that agenda and tweak how you are prepping for this type of a workshop in the future and be more prepared later. In that meeting, what you could also ask the team that are going to be in that meeting or in that workshop is whether they have used that collaboration tool that you will be sharing with them in the past. Because if they have never used a tool like that, it might be really good to just have like a 5 minutes walkthrough with them during that call and share a random link with them and see and generate some sticky notes, create some frames or anything that you are planning to do in the workshop. Because you wouldn't want your team to be figuring out how to use that tool during the workshop. It would be just a waste of time. This might act also as a great guidance for you in the future to potentially include some links to how to use Miro or how to use Mural or how to use the tool that you are going to use in the invite that you are sending to them. So even if some people weren't particularly engaged in that pre-workshop meeting that you were in, they can always go through the invite and find the links in there and learn in their own time how to use the tool. The last thing I like to do in that pre-workshop meeting is to tell people that I would love for them to have their cameras on. I believe it's one of the best way of connecting with people, especially when we are working remotely and if this is a remote workshop. But also you'll see in the actual workshop how engaged people are, and you might learn from that as well for the future workshop on how you be changing your workshop depending on how engaged people are in it. And the last thing, dry run your workshop. So what I like to do is either to talk to myself or record myself and see how I am performing with the workshop, especially when this is the very first one. You might also want to dry run it by your manager, again, designer, or colleague, anyone that may provide you with some feedback. So what I like doing as well when dry running my workshop is to speak to someone. If there isn't another person in the house or in my place that I can speak to, I speak to this guy, and he's such a great listener. So I do that in order to just hear myself out loud and see whether there's anything that I've been planning in my head or on paper or in a digital tool actually makes sense when spoken aloud. And this is probably the last step, but it's not number 7, it's an unofficial step. Keep the energy up. Make sure that when you're in your meeting and when you're planning your workshop, you are excited about this, because all of this that you're planning and you're talking about with your team during your pre-workshop meeting will basically be passed on to them. Help them get excited about the workshop, because what you're doing is so exciting and it's going to generate some great ideas. And I think that if they see that you are very excited and that you are looking forward to doing a workshop, they will feel the same. Okay, so these were the 6 things that I advise you do before your remote workshop. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.